Hello everyone and welcome to this session on how to get best out of CATStrat. Now, this session will be very much relevant, very much important for the upcoming entrance exam. So make sure you listen to whatever I have to say with a lot of attention, and more importantly put to practice whatever we discuss in this session. Without any further ado, let's get started. So first and foremost thing that I want to highlight out here is, if you want to do well in CAT exam, which happens to be the most important entrance exam for any business school aspirant in India, if you want to do well in this exam, there are certain prerequisites, certain qualities that you need to have in you in order to do well in this exam. Now if the question is this the most important exam? Answer obviously would be yes, because around 80% of the top 100 business schools in India accept CAT score. So that makes it the most important entrance exam in India. And if you want to excel in this exam, then there are certain prerequisites. What are those prerequisites? See, you need to have done good preparation for this exam. You need to have done lots of practice. And last but not the least, you need to have a good strategy for the D-Day. Now let me explain each of these points in detail. Remember, only when you have done well in all these three aspects, that's when you will be able to crack this exam. And remember, the competition in this exam is pretty high, because generally around 3 lakh people, they apply for this exam. And last year, little less than 3 lakh people actually took the exam. So that makes this exam a highly competitive exam. And in order to excel, you need to do well in all these three aspects that I have highlighted. Now, what exactly are these aspects? Let us dwell a little bit more in detail. See, when it comes to preparation, this is a sort of an exam which cannot be cracked by merely memorizing formulas. You need to have a good grasp of the concepts. Conceptual clarity is what will help you in cracking this exam. So when you are practicing, it's very much advisable for you. When you are preparing, it's very much advisable for you not to blindly memorize the formulas, but understand what is the underlying concept that is the basis of generating that formula. In fact, there would be questions which can be solved by a longer approach and a shorter approach. A good student is one who doesn't just merely learns the shorter approach, shortcuts, but also has a good grasp of the underlying concepts. Because if there is some kind of variation that examiner brings about in that question, people who are only dependent on shortcut methods, they won't be able to solve the question, which is a slight variant. And people who have good conceptual clarity, who have got an understanding about how the problem has actually been designed, they will be the ones who will be able to solve the question even if there is a slight variation of the model. Now, how do you gain this? You obviously gain it by attending classes. Our faculty members, whatever classes we have delivered, we have made an effort in ensuring that you gain basic understanding, your basics become crystal clear, and you gain conceptual clarity. And when you have attended those classes, I'm hoping here that you have been interacting with faculty members, taking their help, taking their guidance. And when you practice at home, you obviously would have some doubts, or sometimes what happens is after a few weeks you may have forgotten certain concepts and you may need some help in brushing them up. So when you are unable to solve a question, or whenever you are unable to understand how a particular question has to be solved, it's definitely advisable that you attend doubt sessions. And when you attend these doubt sessions, faculty members help you, they guide you. So attending classes and doubt clarifying sessions is what will help you prepare for this exam. But then, this alone will not be sufficient. You would have obviously done a lot of practice with the study material that time has given. But in addition to all that, you definitely need to take exams. You need to take tests. The best tests that we have in India to prepare for this exam obviously are aimcats. All India mock cats designed by us. They are perhaps the best test series that one can write in India. Because what happens when you write aimcats is you get to compete with the best of the aspirants. So with the cream of the aspirants, you get a chance to compete. And apart from this, remember, aimcats also are designed on the basis of CAT exam. So every single aimcat has been designed so that a student gets prepared to handle any kind of eventuality on the day of CAT exam. That's the reason if you have been writing aimcats regularly, you would have observed a lot of variations that our team brings about in each aimcat exam. The type of questions that are included, the kind of chapters that are included, the type of options that are designed, and of course we also do a lot of experiments in aimcats because CAT is highly unpredictable exam and you people need to be prepared to handle any eventuality. So when you write aimcat, you are basically getting excellent practice for the examination. We simulate not only the kind of question, but we also try to simulate the exact platform on which the exam is conducted. And then of course, as I mentioned earlier also, the best of the aspirants write aimcats. So you get a golden opportunity to benchmark yourself against the competition. You will get to know where you stand with respect to the competition, but over here I want to highlight one key point. Do not get demoralized if you are not getting adequate amount of percentile. Remember, the CAT percentile usually is far better than your average aimcat percentile. And the reason is very simple. The quality of test takers in aimcat is very high. Only serious aspirants write aimcats. Whereas CAT exam would also be written by thousands and thousands of students who have not prepared for CAT at all, who are just writing CAT exam just to gain an idea about what this exam is all about. Without much of preparation they are doing that. So beating them will be very, very comfortable thing to do for a good time student. Now when you write aimcats, you get a chance to analyze your performance, and it's very much advisable that you please analyze your performance without fail. Now what do we mean by analyzing one's performance? See, you should analyze, number one, how many attempts are you having in each of the section, and given the difficulty level of that particular aimcat, are those number of attempts sufficient or not? How could you have increased number of attempts? You should ponder over that also. Also analyze the kind of mistakes that you are committing. Are there mistakes that are happening because of lack of conceptual clarity? Are there mistakes happening because of a little casual and carelessness on your behalf? Are mistakes happening because you're not good in certain chapters? And once you have identified the underlying reason, obviously you need to take corrective action. Without properly analyzing your performance, it's not going to help your cause and you won't be able to improve yourself. Also keep an eye on your accuracy, right? Because remember, CAT has a negative marking scheme for multiple choice questions. So when it comes to MCQs, what is your accuracy? You should always keep an eye on that and try and improve your accuracy. Last but definitely not the least is the strategy. Now, in order to develop a good strategy, first and foremost, you need to have good understanding of your strengths. What areas are your strengths? Now, what do I mean by strength here? See, strength could be evaluating yourself at a sectional level, evaluating yourself at a chapter level, also evaluating yourself at a model level. What do I mean by this? See, for instance, let's say quant. Overall, how strong are you in quant? Then in quant, there are so many chapters that are listed out in your SM booklet. So, are you equally good in all the chapters, or are you better in certain chapters and you lack in certain chapters? Please ensure you do work on your weaker chapters, weaker areas, so that eventually those will also turn out to be your strengths. Now, don't just limit yourself to chapter-wise analysis. Also understand your strength with respect to different types of questions in each of the chapters. See, in time and distance, for example, there may be more than a dozen different models which examiner can create. Now, you may not be equally good in every single one of those models. So, which are the models that need a little more focus from your side? You need to figure that out. Alright. Once you have done that, only then you will be able to leverage your strength so that you can maximize your score. Ladies and gentlemen, remember, most of the IIMs, in fact, except IIM Rohtak, all the other IIMs and quite a few of the premier colleges, they have sectional cutoffs. So if you want to cross the sectional cutoffs, then you definitely need to maximize your score in every single section of CAT exam. If you do brilliantly well in one section but don't do well in the other section and you miss the sectional cutoff, then ladies and gentlemen, you may not get interview calls from 20 out of 21 IIMs. So it's very much advisable that you leverage your strength in every section so that you can maximize your score. And learn from your mistakes. The strategy only develops well when you are learning from the mistakes that you are committing in AIMCATs. With every single AIMCAT, if you are committing the same set of mistakes, that means you are not learning from your mistakes. And it's not just that you can learn from your own mistakes, you can learn from mistakes that others have also committed. But make sure you keep on continuously evaluating your performance in AIMCATs and try and keep on observing what are your strengths and what are the weaker areas, and you keep working on those weaker areas so that eventually they'll end up becoming your strength. Now, why is strategy important? See, everybody keeps highlighting the fact that strategy plays a very key role, but what kind of role does it play? See, you must understand that test-taking strategy is as important as preparation itself. In fact, many of us, including me, we believe that it is in fact more important than preparation itself. Because remember, good preparation will definitely help you in getting a respectable percentile. I'm not denying it. But once you have crossed that respectable percentile mark, let's say 80 percentile mark, you can reach by having a good preparation as far as subject knowledge is concerned. But remember, moving from 80 to 90 or moving from 90 to 99, it's not possible to do that with your subject knowledge alone. On top of that, you need to have an excellent strategy in place. Only then this 80 percentile of yours can become a 90 percentile. A 90 percentile of yours can become a 95 percentile. A 95 percentile of yours can end up crossing 99 percentile. In fact, every year in time, we constantly notice that our toppers, people who get 99 plus percentile in CAT, they are not only good with their conceptual clarity, but they have excellent strategy skills. And these strategy skills, ladies and gentlemen, you will be able to develop by using CATStrat tool that we have got. Now, remember, I already highlighted the fact that there is intense competition. Around 3 lakh people are going to compete with you for around 7,000 seats in IIMs. That's the reason it's very important that you maximize your performance, maximize your score, and you crack this exam. Remember, cracking CAT exam will have dual advantage. By cracking CAT exam, you have a very good chance of getting interview calls from top business schools. But the reason I'm highlighting it as a dual advantage is because even during the final selection stage, CAT will again play a role. CAT will again have weightage assigned, and I would like to highlight most of the IIMs give good amount of weightage to CAT during the final selection stage also. So doing well in CAT is not only fetching you an interview call, but it is also helping you in converting that interview call into a final admission offer. So that surely gives you an edge over the competition that you face on the day of exam. Now, this is where CATStrat comes into picture. Now, this is an excellent tool that will help you in cracking this exam. Now, what is CATStrat? It's a unique tool. Why do I say unique? Because nobody else offers this kind of a tool to the students to improve their strategy, especially the test-taking strategy part as such. And remember, it's a novel idea, it's a unique idea, it's a new kind of an idea that we have come up with, and we have been offering CATStrat to our students for the past few years, and the feedback that we are getting from the toppers of time every year is that CATStrat has been instrumental in them developing a very good test strategy for the day of exam. And this tool is an interactive tool. Whatever options you choose, based on that, customized feedback is generated, and that would help you in understanding the kind of options that you have opted for and the kind of options that are ideal. So it's an interactive tool that makes it extremely useful. It's a very practical kind of a tool. So this is not a tool where the scenarios that have been highlighted, the situations that have been presented, or the courses of actions that have been offered, they are not practical. They are not theoretical kind of concepts which can't really be put to practice on the day of exam. These are definitely courses of action. These are definitely strategies that are very practical in nature that can be applied on the day of exam. And it is comprehensive. That means it covers almost every single scenario or situation that can arise on the day of CAT exam, so that a student who uses CATStrat tool will be getting very good exposure about different possible scenarios that he or she may encounter on the day of CAT. It also serves the purpose of being a refresher. So already I'm sure all of you who are watching this session, I'm sure you already have developed a strategy of what exactly should you be doing on the day of exam. But this tool will evaluate those inputs of yours, will evaluate your strategies, and it'll revise, it'll serve the purpose of a good refresher of good approach that a student can take on the day of exam. Now this tool will help you in honing up your test taking strategy, not only time management strategy, but also how to avoid mistakes, how best you can utilize those 40 minutes per section that you get on the day of exam, how best can you skip questions, what should be the approach, and it presents you with various exam related scenarios. Some of these scenarios you might not have encountered in aimcats. They may be new kind of scenarios, but you may end up encountering them on the day of exam. So it's very much advisable that you use this tool so that you get exposure about different scenarios that can arise on the day of exam. And then this tool also evaluates your decisions. Whatever decision you take, whichever course of action you opt for, we give you detailed feedback. Customized detailed feedback is given to you. And remember, we also suggest best possible decisions in each of the given scenarios. So your option or your course of action that you might have opted for may not be ideal. Then we will not only mention that it's not ideal, but we'll also tell you what would have been the ideal way out, so that once you go through this, in actual exam, if you encounter a similar kind of scenario, you will be in a good position to take a call on what is the best way out in that situation. Now, CATStrat will have 3 modules, just like CAT exam. So there is a module for verbal ability and reading comprehension. There is a module for data interpretation and logical reasoning, and there is a separate module for quantitative ability. Remember, each module has several interactive scenarios. So different situations are mentioned about each of these modules. In fact, I would say total number of scenarios that we have in CATStrat are approximately around 50. Around 50 different scenarios are presented to you. In each of the modules, we have got somewhere around 15 scenarios, which adds up to around 50 scenarios in all. And this is a comprehensive list of scenarios, ladies and gentlemen. So whatever may happen on the day of exam, whatever scenario you may face on the day of the exam, if you use CATStrat properly, you would have gained exposure about each one of those possible scenarios. Now, we simulate realistic situations that you may face on the day of the exam, and we need you to take critical decisions, because those decisions will have a huge impact on your chances of making it to IIMs and other premier business schools. Now, how did we design those scenarios? See, each scenario has been designed meticulously by our backend team, and they have ensured that each of these scenarios, when they're designed, the goal is very simple. The goal is to help you in understanding the nuances of optimizing your performance. So as I said earlier, you have to do well overall in CAT, but you also need to do well in every single section of CAT to cross the sectional cutoffs in 20 out of 21 IIMs. And that can only happen when you have actually understood the nuances of optimizing your performance. You also need to recognize possible pitfalls, because based on your options that you have opted for, certain times you would have taken options or taken a course of action which is not ideal. That would lead to a pitfall. So we would like you to understand why that particular course of option that you have opted for, course of action that you have opted for, it's not ideal. And we will suggest approaches that will elevate your performance, enhance your percentile in actual CAT exam. Now, what kind of scenarios will you have in CATStrat? See, first and foremost, there will be a description of the situation that you may encounter on the day of exam. So that description will be a detailed description. So when you read the description, you will have complete understanding of the situation that you may face on the day of exam. Now, based on that, you need to take a decision to overcome in that situation, because you may have various options available. You need to decide about what exactly should you do in that particular scenario. Now, as I said earlier, different possible courses of action would be there. They will be presented to you in form of options. Now, what you need to do, my friend, is you need to think about it, and you need to decide out of the given courses of action which one would be ideal one according to you. Once you have done that, then the interactive assessment will happen after the module has been completed, or the question has been completed, I should say. After the question has been completed, then assessment will happen, and then detailed explanation will be given. This detailed explanation will be pertaining to what option you have opted for, as well as which are the ideal ones and why exactly are the ideal ones. That the detailed manner they will explain it to you. Remember, CATStrat has almost exhaustive list of scenarios that a student may face while taking exam. As I said earlier, around 50 different scenarios would be there, and that number is humongous, because once you come across those almost 50 scenarios, you will get an understanding about various situations that you may come up on the day of exam. Some of the situations may be absolutely new to you. You may not have encountered them in the mocks so far, but they may happen on the day of exam. So it's very much advisable that you use this tool without fail. Now, there are certain things that I want you to remember before you use this tool. First and foremost, there is no time limit from our side. So there's no timer on the screen, and there's no limit at all. But still, I would recommend that on one hand, you should not take too much of time also, because remember, on the day of exam, you need to decide, you need to take these decisions very fast. But having said that, it doesn't mean that you do the same in CATStrat. In CATStrat, you take few seconds extra, you think about it, you ponder over the questions. There is absolutely no problem, but make sure that you do it seriously, because remember, this CATStrat tool, this tool is meant to improve your strategy. As I have highlighted earlier, having a good strategy on the day of exam can actually be the difference between a 80 percentiler and a 95 percentiler. Now, in CATStrat, whatever responses you have chosen, they cannot be changed, right? Because the same thing will happen in CAT also, right? If you choose a certain course of action and you implement it, you can't really undo it. So same thing will reflect in CATStrat also. The responses that you have opted for, you can't change them. So choose your responses very carefully. And remember, it's not like mathematics. There are no absolute right answers here. Sometimes some questions may have more than one ideal scenario, more than one ideal course of action. So some scenarios that we have presented in CATStrat, there may be one ideal scenario or one ideal course of action or two ideal course of action. Rarely there may be three ideal course of action also. And we will explain to you why that particular course of action is ideal, why the other courses of action are not ideal. We will give you a detailed explanation. Now, if you want to extract best out of CATStrat, I would strongly recommend for each module, you please budget for 1 hour. It means if you are attempting all 3 modules, we recommend you to spend 3 hours duration with this. right? Now, why am I asking you to spend so much of time? Because friends, you need to spend enough time on each scenario. You need to read each scenario. If you want, read the scenario presented more than once so that you don't miss out on any underlying point. And then contemplate, think, analyze what could be the best course of action that is possible. Look at the options that are given to you. Evaluate each course of action. There may be more than one ideal option, but then according to you, which one seems the best to you? So relatively, which one do you think is the most ideal according to you? Choose that particular option. Remember, carefully go through the assessment and analysis. So many students, what they have seen is they read the questions very carefully, but when it comes to the analysis that is provided, they do not read it carefully. I strongly recommend, please go through it very, very carefully and spend time on the reading the analysis part, because that is very, very crucial. Do not get discouraged if your course of action is not an ideal course of action. Learn from it. Learn from your mistakes. It's okay. It's good that you have now understood that your course of action is not ideal, and hopefully you will avoid doing it on the day of CAT exam. And remember, it's never too late to learn from your mistakes. Some people, they say to me, there are only few weeks to CAT. Is it too late for me to learn from my mistakes? I would suggest, even if you learn from your mistake couple of days from before CAT also, it will be useful on the day of exam. So it's never too late to learn from your mistakes. Please do understand that. And remember, ensure that you internalize the rationale that has been presented. Unless and until you understand the rationale that the analysis has explained, you will not be able to apply it in the subsequent aimcats. And only when you apply the learnings in subsequent scenarios, wherever it is possible in CATStrat, you will be able to improve your performance. And this will enable you to confidently take the right kind of decisions even when you are faced with any new and challenging scenario. So even beyond these 50 scenarios, on the day of CAT, if you come across 51st scenario, for example, because you have used the CATStrat, because your critical thinking about exam taking has improved, you will be able to come out with flying colors even in that unforeseen situation. Now remember, avoid reading the explanations without first giving sufficient thought to the situation provided. So many people, what they do is, they don't really mark the best course of action after doing a lot of thinking. They just quickly, randomly mark some course of action because they believe that reading the analysis part is the one that is important. See, while reading the analysis carefully is important, but reading the situation and choosing the best course of action according to you is equally important. So please avoid reading the explanations directly without having given enough thought process, even enough thinking to the question, that is the scenario, as well as the courses of action. Don't rush through the explanations that have been given. Remember, the explanations have been designed after having a lot of discussions. Our backend team had several rounds of discussions, and then they came out with ideal course of action in each of the situations. So a lot of effort has gone into writing the explanations. So please give a lot of time to reading those explanations and internalize the rationale that has been presented to you. Now, where can you find CATStrat? See, CATStrat can be found on your student homepage. On your student homepage, you will be able to see CATStrat. It is highlighted here. So this CATStrat button, if you click, you will get access to CATStrat, and this is how it will look like. So when you click on CATStrat button, this is the page that will get opened up. It will say welcome to CATStrat in interactive strategy refresher. And in this home page of CATStrat, there are 3 tabs. What is CATStrat? Click on it. Without fail, click on it. It will again explain to you what CATStrat is. Then you click on the second button. What will you find in this tool? What exactly will this tool contain? That has been mentioned out here. And then finally click on the last button, how to get best out of this tool. Once you have clicked on all these 3 buttons, once you have read it carefully, then you click on this button, begin CATStrat. Some students, they ask me, sir, without reading these three things, what happens if I directly press this? You can't. They won't allow you to begin unless and until you have read those 3 pages. So you have to click on this, and then click on this, and only then you can begin using CATStrat. And in CATStrat, on the top right corner, you will have the exit button. At any point of time, if you have some other important work or some emergency has come up and you want to discontinue it, you can click on that exit and you can move out of this. But my recommendation is use CATStrat only when you have adequate amount of time, and use CATStrat only when you are in fresh mindset. You should not be very tired when you use CATStrat. Now, what kind of scenarios will be there? I'll give you a couple of examples, couple of illustrations so that you understand what kind of scenarios will be there. For instance, read this. I'll give you a minute of time to read this. Please go through this and mark best course of action, ideal course of action according to you. Mark it in your mind so that when I explain, it becomes clear to you. So what does it say? With 10 minutes, remember they have given the duration as only 10 minutes. With only 10 minutes remaining in VARC section, you are left with only one RC passage with 4 questions and with 8 verbal ability questions. What will you do next? So there are only 10 minutes left. It means you have already spent 30 minutes. Only 10 minutes are there, and 1 RC passage and 8 verbal ability questions are remaining. What will you do next? Underneath that, we have presented 4 courses of action. First one says attempt the passage that is remaining and then move to the verbal ability questions. Second one says move to the verbal ability questions in the section immediately. Third one says glance through the passage, and if it is easy to read and attempt the questions in it before moving to the verbal ability questions. Last one says solve only the easy verbal ability questions first and then come back to the passage if time permits. So these are the options that are given to you. Now let us see which one would be the ideal decision or a good decision. See, choice B or choice C are good decisions. What is choice B? Move to the verbal ability questions in the sections immediately. Choice C says glance through the passage, and if it is easy to read, attempt the questions in it before moving to the verbal ability questions. So these are good decisions. Now, what we do is, after you have opted for a particular choice, for example, here let's say you have opted for choice C. Imagine you have opted for choice C, glance through the passage, and if it is easy to read, attempt the questions in it before moving to the verbal ability questions. Now we will explain to you. Now here, the assessment will first and foremost give feedback on your decision. So if you have opted for option C, the first message that will be there is smart move. Going through the RC passage first to identify whether it is easy will help maximize your score. So this is customized feedback on your option, the option that you have selected. But after that will come detailed explanation. So here we have written, for most students, verbal ability questions usually takes less time to solve than reading comprehension. Therefore, because only 10 minutes are remaining, it's a good idea to attempt RC only if it is easy and then go to the verbal ability questions. On the other hand, because verbal ability questions take less amount of time, another good option is to attempt them first. So like this detailed explanation has been given to you underneath. So when you are reading the analysis and the explanation, don't just read this part which pertains to your answer. This part is equally important. You must read the detailed explanation without fail. This detailed explanation part, it remains the same irrespective of which course of action you have selected. This part will change based on the option that you select. But this part is actually very, very important because it helps you in understanding why that particular course of action is ideal. Similarly, choice B is the other option, which is also a good decision because you want to maximize your scores. Bad decisions. Now remember, what were the options that are not good? The bad decision would be to attempt the passage that is remaining and then move to the verbal ability. Why is it a bad decision? It is a bad decision because easy verbal ability questions you would have ended up skipping. Because remember, if the passage is difficult to read, it will take a lot of time, and by then easy verbal ability questions you would not have even seen them. That's the reason it's not a good option. Similarly, solving only the easy verbal ability questions first and then coming back to the RC passage, even though it may seem like a good idea to you, but remember, once a student has attempted the verbal ability questions, you may not have enough time left because RC would take a lot of time. I told you only 10 minutes are there. Imagine you have spent around 6 minutes with verbal ability. Do you really think 4 minutes will be enough for you to do anything with the RC passage? Not really, right? That's the reason it's not the good decision. So this is an example pertaining to VARC. Now let's look at one more question. Go through this. I'll give you a little bit of time. Mark according to you what would be the ideal course of action. So the question says you just came across a question and even before you read it, you realize it's from a topic that you are not comfortable with. What do you do? So let's say you're not comfortable with, let's say, time and work, and there's a question based on time and work. What would you do? So the courses of action given to you are move on since you are not sure that you will be able to solve the question. Second one says read the question and decide what to do based on your understanding of the question. Third course of action is mark the question for review and attempt it later. Finally, the last one, guess the answer and move on. So whenever you have these kind of questions given, you will select whichever option you want and then you will click this, which will confirm your answer or submit your answer. Once you have done that, you won't be able to change your answer. Now, the best course of option or best course of action would be choice B. Read the question first and decide what to do based on your understanding of the question. Why is this the best decision? Because remember, you may not be strong in a particular type of question or a particular chapter, but still using the tricks that you might have learned with the aimcats, you will still be able to handle that scenario. For example, let's say we have a question where they are asking you to calculate value of this 1 plus 1 by 2 plus 1 by 3 so on till infinity. So even though you may not have good grasp on the underlying concept, but you can very easily use the online calculator that is provided to you and you can get some of the first few terms. As far as options are concerned, if the options are not very close to each other, this will be good enough to get the answer. So remember, just because you're not comfortable with a particular topic doesn't mean you directly skip. You first read the question and decide what should you do as such. Another good option, another good decision is choice C. So even if you have opted for the option, mark the question for review and attempt it later, I'm happy to tell you, you are absolutely correct. That is also acceptable. Because if you are marking it for review, you can do other questions and you can come back to it if you run out of questions. So this is also a good way of doing this, because once you have marked it for review, you would know that once you run out of questions, you can very easily go back to the review option and you can do this. But remember friends, I strongly recommend you should never leave any topic when you are preparing for CAT. There is still time for CAT and make sure you don't leave any topic. Bad decisions will be A or D. Moving on, since you are not sure that you will be able to solve the question, is not the right thing to do. Similarly, guess the answer, because remember, negative marking is there in a CAT exam. It's not a good option. Now, why exactly I am saying that's the ideal situation? Let's look at the explanation given. So, if you opt for choice A, the feedback given to you will be not a good idea. you may be able to gain few marks simply by reading through the question and investing few more seconds in it. And then of course a detailed explanation will be there. Alright. So this kind of explanation will be offered for every single scenario, and detailed explanation must be read very carefully. Now, finally friends, remember, by the end of this exercise you will realize, you will come to a conclusion that cracking CAT is not just about having good conceptual clarity, having good knowledge. It also requires good test taking strategy. Please do try everything that you learn by using the CATStrat tool. You would have learned so many good strategies, but apply them in aimcats, the remaining aimcats as well as the aimcats that you might have skipped, or the online sectional, advanced level sectional tests. Apply these concepts, apply these strategies, only then you will get used to it. Remember, you have sufficient time to fine tune and finalize your strategy for the day of exam. Now, how can you do that? As I said earlier, aimcats that you have missed as well as aimcats self-administered, they are there on your student homepage. Please use them. On a lighter note, you must have come across Uncle Ken's character. So, we have slightly changed the dialogue. With great practice comes great strategy. So this is on a lighter note, but definitely something which you should believe in. That is very, very practical. So please ensure that you practice all these concepts and hone up your skill set. And when you are writing MCATs, please use the expert review option that is there on your student homepage. That will help you, that will provide you with guidelines as to how exactly you should have navigated through a section. Online sectional tests advanced level will also give you good practice, so don't skip them. Make sure you use them also. So friends, with this I have come to the end of this session. I hope you have got a good idea about what CATStrat is all about. So in case you have not used CATStrat, please go ahead after this and use it without fail from your student homepage. So on behalf of everybody at Time, I wish you all the best for CAT exam. Thank you.